For me, this is my favorite time of the year ahead of training camp. Mandatory minicamp. They're still in t-shirts and shorts. I think sometimes that gets lost because we just are excited to see these starters back on the field. Some one-on-one matchups. No tackling yet, but first day of minicamp definitely revealed a lot.
Yeah, definitely some real things happening out there. We can see who's lining up where, who's looking good, who came back and flash. We're going to get into all that, break down all of it, take you through the entire first practice, and then we'll be back tomorrow to take you through the second practice, and we'll have a wrap of everything at the end of it. We are presented by PJ's and coming to you from the Better Call Bado podcast studio. So make sure you find the location for PJ's. There's probably one right by you because they are all over the city. Get yourself a coffee, start your day with them. And if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, maritime and Jones Act, hurricane and storm claims, you better call Bado at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. And get yourself to Ideal Market, home of the freshest produce in the city. They're doing great things in the community, and they always bring the best quality food prices at the best prices. The home of the largest variety of Hispanic and international foods you will find in the state, and the hot deli that surpasses many restaurants in the flavor of their authentic Hispanic dishes. And check out Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. That's an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans. It's not for the thin skin. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. And last but not least, get to Firehouse Subs, Veterans Boulevard location. Great people doing great things for the community. All right, let's get into the show.
First day of mandatory minicamp, and as expected, the starters that we thought would return did return. That include Marshon Lattimore, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, and we saw all three of them kind of in new lights, old lights. A lot of things that we learned about the three of those guys in this first minicamp. And let's go ahead and start with Alvin Kamara and what we saw from him. To me, it did not look like the same old Alvin Kamara who's like laughing and jumping around. I think a lot of that has to do with Mark Ingram not being there and just him not having that same dynamic. And also, too, the fact that there's so much stiff competition in that room.
No, it's definitely competition, and he's there to do business. I mean, the rookie said he's going to take his job. The other guy's there to take his job. Alvin's probably heard, the noise he mentioned last year, that he knew the noise about people talking about his job and him falling off and all this other stuff. So he's out there to compete and try to take everybody out and remind them, sometimes you got to go out there and show people who you are. And I think that's probably where his head's at right now.
Yeah, that could only help. I mean, obviously we overvalue small sample sizes, but I mean, one of the first things we saw when it was just the quarterbacks working with the running backs and the receivers is Derek Carr throwing a couple passes to Alvin Kamara. And it's just a reminder, that is what we have poured over the last couple of years with Taysom Hill because he couldn't do it very well. Jameis Winston, because he hadn't done it much in his career. And it's not something Derek Carr has done a ton in his career, and he didn't like overpromise that, oh yeah, I'm going to throw to Alvin a ton. He actually kind of diminished the question. Oh, I've heard that question before. Why don't you throw that to tight ends more? Then why don't you throw to the receivers more? Then why don't you throw to the running backs more? He goes, I'm going to throw to whoever's open. But if he's a guy, if the Saints, Pete Carmichael, can figure out how to get Alvin more involved in the passing game, and Derek Carr is a guy who can get the ball to him on time, we've been saying it for 3 straight years now. That's something that has gone missing from this offense.
Yeah, it seemed more to just like a dog mentality of Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, and Kendre Miller. I never saw really the three of them talking all together at once. Kind of seemed like Alvin was kind of on his own island. And I don't mean that in a bad way, that he had like a bad attitude or anything. He just is very much, all right, I haven't been here. I'm here now. I want to prove that I'm serious about this. He knows this. I mean, the suspension is looming. So he wants to be able to come in, play until he can, suspension, comes back in, and he still can solidify that role. And he really, minicamp and training camp is the only time he has to prove that he can beat out Jamal Williams and he can beat out Kendre Miller, who's still not even on the field. Kendre Miller was still working off to the side. I don't know. I don't know what I expected with those three personalities, but it was kind of surprising to see the three of them really not communicate at all.
But
right?
One thing that was really interesting to me, that was pointed out to me recently, and I don't even know who sent it to me, so apologies to whoever, but there were no videos of him working out with Dr. Sharif this offseason, which is a major change. Yeah. Normally you see Alvin's progress all throughout, and if you go and do the search on Instagram, not following each other. So I don't know if he changed his workout program this offseason. So I'm going to be very interested to hear from him when he talks, just to see if there were any changes there, because it does seem like he did things differently this offseason.
Wow, that's really interesting. How long have they been working together? Like
Since he came in the league, yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty glaring. I don't know how many. Like usually when I feel like when NFL players stick with a trainer, you never really see them move off of them, even when it comes to like a nutrition coach and all of that. So
one thing though, like
surprising.
as far as Alvin working behind the scenes, I mean, the one thing we've heard about him a million times is how smart he is.
Yeah.
Like, and I know they say that about a lot of players, but like to another level, like Sean Payton said, like there's been like Marshall Faulk and Alvin and like the way he sees the game. And that was the first thing Derek Carr said. He said, the conversations I have with this guy in the rooms, like people don't realize how smart he is, how he sees this route or he drops or whatever. And he was talking about his route running. What was his line? He was like, that's not normal. Like, how good he is at route running. So there are those same, behind the scenes conversations going on with Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara that he talked about, the text relationship he had with Michael Thomas too.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too, that Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara have been in communication beyond this. I guess not so surprising, but we just haven't heard from Alvin. So I thought that was a good sign, at least, that the quarterback and running back are getting to know each other, especially too, because it looked to me like Jamal Williams was still taking those first team reps when the offense was together.
Well, I mean, Alvin was in there too. He had 2 catches and 7-on-7, so he was getting early reps. It was maybe even the first play of that. So I mean, they're gonna mix in. They're gonna get turns in there, and it's gonna be a rotation. Thing about Alvin looked explosive to me coming out on the field. Our guy Brandon got a video of him like running over the bags, like he was just blasting out everything. I thought he looked really good. First glimpse. Obviously, that's how he always looks, but just to see it when he comes back, being right there, ready to go, definitely a good sign for him. So he's. I guarantee Alvin has just been sitting back, listening and watching, and is just ready to show people what he can do. And I think he's looking forward to the competition.
Never unathletic looking, that's for sure.
No question.
So moving on to another starter that was back, Taysom Hill. And by the way, the last time we had talked to Dennis Allen, you had asked him, is Taysom Hill still going to be in the tight end room? What did he spend, like 5 minutes over there?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he truly was in the quarterback room, it felt like the majority of the time. And that was in warm-ups when they were just like throwing to the bags, or whenever, any little like quarterback drill, I felt like Taysom was there. And to be honest with you, it kind of felt crowded with the 4 of them.
Yeah, and Nick made the point, and one of his first reactions is, does that mean they've got trade potential here, which you can expand on? Maybe it also lets you know that they feel comfortable with Jake Hayner's development too, but not that I think there's a backup controversy in the meantime. But what it does show me is what we talked about before. Nick made the great point where he was like, maybe they should put Taysom Hill in the running back room because they should focus on what he does best. Well, what he does best has always been lining up as the quarterback, having that hint that he's going to throw it 1 out of 10 times, but, still running for his 6 yards of carry. And I think that's a great sign that they're like, we've talked about, are they still going to get Taysom close to 100 carries this year because it worked so well that last year? I think it's a great sign that they still visualize that role for Taysom first and foremost, and that tight end field secondary. That's how they treat it in the season, so that might as well be how they treat it in practice.
Yeah, and just with Taysom too, he was still doing special teams thing. I mean, it looked like it was his same old role. I will say that quarterback kind of felt like higher volume.
Yeah, look, I don't like it. I don't like him working out at quarterback. I mean, a couple snaps, sure, but like you just drafted a guy that needs to develop. So if Taysom's taking those reps, then Hayner's not getting reps. It's cutting into what he can do. Like, just get it settled. Like, settle him into a position. You can have him come in maybe and do a series once a week. We'll see how they do it throughout this week. Maybe that's what it's going to be. But yeah, keep him sharp, because there's going to be times in the game where he throws. But if he's warming up with them, going through everything with them, like, it doesn't make sense to me. So the only thing that does make sense to me is that if there were the idea of something happens and, okay, like somebody gets hurt somewhere, Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't come back in Vegas, they're going to make a call for Jameis. I think he's probably the guy at the top of that list, and I think you got to be ready for that. So maybe keep Taysom a little bit closer there so that you have the flexibility to do it. And look, I think Jameis would love to get out of here and go start somewhere too. I think he loves it here, but I think he loves playing more than the location. And if there was that opportunity, I think he should embrace it, and I think he would. Yeah,
it's something the Saints definitely need to keep an eye on, especially when, let's mention this too, who wasn't there. Rashid Shaheed was out with a minor injury. He's not going to be back, groin injury. He's not going to be back until training camp. And while he says that's not a big deal, it is still kind of a big deal to not have one of the big 3 that you expected to break out this year, like a receiver to not be there until camp is still a little bit of a glaring concern. Tre'Quan Smith made, like, I don't know what happened on the play, but he just came down really, really hard on 2-minute drill and had to be helped off with trainers. Michael Thomas says he'll be back for the first day of training camp. The fact that there's still he's still not involved in team drills, and he was really only working off to the side with Carr, like not doing, the rigorous route running, like he was standing and catching. I wouldn't be surprised if they are considering Jameis Winston for a possible Hunter Renfrow plus more trade.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. That's the trade that makes the most sense in the world. It addresses everybody's needs. It's win-win for all parties. The only thing that I think could possibly be a hang-up is that I think there's probably a little bit of resentment on the Raiders side towards the Derek Carr side about not accepting the trade, giving him one of his favorite targets, is helping out a guy that didn't do anything to help you. But at some point, you just got to be, okay, this is the best offer, and this is the thing that's going to work. This is the team that wants the most. Saints would probably pay more for Renfrow than anybody else at this point, just given the connection in some of those holes. But for sure, yeah. And you mentioned Tre'Quan got hurt. Like, he had a rough practice too. Like, bringing in more competition at that spot, I think is a very, very good thing.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked all along about how well he would fit this team. So, for a hot minute, I felt a little bit better about the receiver depth, but you're right. Like, when you looked at yesterday's practice in a microcosm, it's a reminder of how quickly you can go from being like, oh, like they're big three to, oh my gosh, it's thin.
And it's a little bit of I feel like we've been on like the cautious optimism. We've talked about that on the show before. Like, of course, we'd love to see Michael Thomas all season, but is that going to happen? We truly do not know until we see it. So training camp will be a really good indicator of that. But if Michael Thomas is not ready to go, I could absolutely see them bringing in a veteran wide receiver and trying to just make that room make sense and just have the depth there, because I feel like they've got depth at almost every other position group on offense, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
All right, moving on to another guy. You mentioned things that make sense. Marshon Lattimore with the first pass breakup in 7-on-7 made a lot of sense, and it got the defense pretty juiced up. I missed hearing that.
Yeah, well, it was on Tre'Quan Smith too. I mean, he just
Tre'Quan
dropped 2 passes. He just had a rough practice. But yeah, Marshon came out, hit the ground running, looked like himself. Another guy. It's just, you want to see him come back and look how they look, and there's no hang up there. The thing that I liked watching about him the most is they were doing like a dime drill early in practice, and guys are coming out there, they're trying to get lined up, and he's telling them where to go. And we've heard more and more this offseason about him being in that leadership role. So now I'm like out there looking for it, and like he's definitely that guy that just kind of knows what everybody's supposed to be doing. Hard to believe he's going to be going into year 7. It makes me feel old that he's been in the league for 7 years.
And he's like 24 years old.
Yeah. He is like the youngest guy in the league when he came in. It's crazy though. He's a vet. Like, he's like a grizzled veteran at this point, and you see it. But yeah, that was really interesting to me to just kind of see him be the guy. Like, no, like telling Paulson and Debo where to go and how to line up and everything. So that's definitely where he's at in his career.
Is glowing the right word? Because I feel like with Marshon Lattimore, we talk about like dogs and mentality and things like that.
Glowing is that little sunburn underneath there. And I just want to take a moment to like, it is just remarkable. We got Sebastian from Little Mermaid hosting the show today. Little makeup on, so you don't see it. Are you gonna sing Under the Sea, or are we just gonna...
You know what? Listen, context to this, he's just giving me shit because I gave him shit after this guy went out to Jazz Fest and was like, "I'll be fine." What was it, our very first show together, all 3 of us?
I mean, they should see what's going on under those sleeves.
No, we're not.
We were walking out there. I said, hey, you need some sunscreen. You're like, no, I got the good olive skin. It was just so arrogant. And here we are. So the little comeuppance.
In my defense, and Mike said this too, the Saints were supposed to be inside the majority of the day. So I was like, oh, I can get some color. Like, we got time. They were inside for like stretching, and that was it. And that's when I should have known we made a poor choice. And you offered me sunscreen again, too, when we were walking out.
Look, that's what the vets do, though. I was trying to get you lined up, and you're like, no, I got this. And then you got beat on a 50-yard Hail Mary.
Thankfully, fans are not going to be out there today because they're going to see me in this long sleeve at practice and be like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's, what do they got? A lot of sand. We got that hot crustacean band. If you do want to sing, my kids were in the Little Mermaid last year.
I was like, get out
I have
of
the
here.
lyrics ready if you guys need them.
Say Under the Sea real quick with like a little...
I'm good. I'm good.
All right, I have thoughts on Tre'Quan and Marshon. For whatever reason, I wrote Tre'Quan Smith's name down 14 times yesterday and like bringing the summer total to 14. But he also had like the best catch of the day on a diving catch, and he made like an incredible like punt down at the 1 yard line. And of all the things he did yesterday, that's the kind of thing he's going to have to do to stay on the roster as the fourth receiver. But Marshon, I wrote down as my play of the day, even though it was not even in full team drills, and it was just a pass breakup that probably Derek Carr said they got away with one. He said it probably should have been an interception. Just that reminder, the same thing of Alvin came back to work. Marshon came to work. Like we pour over, do these guys need to be at OTAs? When they show up and they look that good, it's kind of like, no, they know what they're doing. But what I thought was really interesting about Marshon yesterday is Dennis Allen's quote, which kind of felt like a cliche quote, but it kind of didn't. He said, we expect him to perform at an elite level. And he said, our defense relies on that player at that position to give us an elite performance. And I wonder, we always talk about like on their draft board, they have musts and wants and needs. Like, I wonder how many players they're like, this guy needs to be elite for our team to work. But Marshon is probably the first guy on that list. So a lot of guys need to be good. It's a team game. It's all 11 out there. But some guys need to be elite. And luckily, this defense works better when Marshon Lattimore is elite.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that can, I think, make or break a season. I know that's like kind of crazy to say at cornerback, but if he's not on the field, then you have some questions. You do have depth at those positions.
He missed 11 games last year, and they were top 5 pass defense.
Imagine with him in.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if he makes or breaks. So I think they got good depth there. Like, it's crazy that they could live with him.
From the standpoint of not make or break, let me say this in a different way. Like getting them to like that next playoff game.
No doubt about it.
That's what Marshon brings to a team. And two, you mentioned, I mean, he was vocal and he did look like he looked a little bit different as far as like his facial reaction and the way that he communicated with the guys. One of the things that was surprising to me, we've been pumping A.Taylor for the last few weeks, and he did not work with the ones at all. It was Paulson Adebo opposite Marshon Lattimore. In the slot, it was either Bradley Roby or Ugo Momadi, and then Pete Werner, Demario Davis, Marcus May, and Tyrann Mathieu. And I don't think I ever spotted A.Taylor working with the ones at either the slot or cornerback. What do we make of that? Is it that they are making him earn it? Or, I mean, what can we make of it after just one practice?
100% earn it. I mean, like Marshon's rookie year, he was with the twos the whole entire time, and then he earned his way up. I think with A.Taylor, there's probably an element, too, of just with his personality that making him have to fight and claw and get his snaps, I think is probably a good thing, too. So I think there's definitely going to be that opportunity. But yeah, Adebo started all last year. He's going to have to come in. He's going to have to beat him out. He's going to have to knock him off. I do think that's the outcome that everybody is hoping happens, because it means you're getting better at that position. But he's not coming in and just, here you go and off you go. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. We'll probably see some rotation later on, but I do probably think that this is how it's going to look throughout this. And then maybe in training camp, we start to see some shaking up of the depth chart.
You always see that at every position. Even, if they bring in a Brian Brzee, like, he has to, this year it's new veterans. I'm trying to think of another example, but like, Tano is going to go in ahead of Foskirter, because it's just, I think it's as much sending the message to, if you show up on the first day and A.Taylor's with the ones and Paulson's with the twos, it's like, we've already demoted you, Paulson. Yeah. It's like, so that doesn't describe their vision. It's just, they always kind of come up with a, when we install, this was the pecking order. But we'll find out how quickly they start rotating. Like, I'm already curious, are they going to rotate before the end of this mini camp? Is training camp going to be practice 1 as Adebo, practice 2 as Taylor? I think it'll get there, but I am curious to see how quickly.
Yeah, at least in the slot. See him get some snaps there with the first team. Like, I could see the outside, him maybe not getting those first team reps. I would be surprised if he doesn't get some on the inside, but I don't know. Again, like, Roby's the veteran guy there, so it's not that much different than Adebo. He might just have to wait his turn and make his case and try to find a way to fight his way in there.
Did you guys have eyes on this too? Did Taysom beat him off the line on one of those 7-on-7?
On the slant? I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Listen, if
Taysom's a football player, though,
yeah, right. If we know one thing about A.Taylor, though, he probably like has already written that down, has circled it, and is like, I'm coming for day 2. Like, that's never gonna happen again. I mean, that guy's confidence in his ability to want to fix things as quickly as possible. I mean, when you guys interviewed him, that's just in his DNA.
Yeah, he has "I'm him" tattooed behind his ear. Like,
does he?
Oh yeah, there's no lack of confidence there. There's no lack of confidence there.
I think at that position, though, you can have that mentality. Or
Yeah. You need it.
Need it.
I think it's a prerequisite. I mean, those are the most confident, cocky people in the world, and they got to have that because they got to be able to give up a 65-yard pass to Mike Evans down the field and then come back the next snap and say, you know what? No, you're
not
nothing.
again.
Yeah.
You're nothing.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that tattoo, so that's really interesting. Another starter who was working off to the side, we mentioned him a little bit, Michael Thomas. The only difference I saw from the minicamp practice and OTAs was just the volume. So obviously during minicamp, it's figuring out who the Saints want to keep on special teams. So that those drills ran a little bit long yesterday. Because of that, on the other side of the field, that's when Derek Carr got to get some one-on time with Michael Thomas. And even I heard Derek Carr say, like, I'm 32 years old, Mike. Like, come on. Because I think it was that, like, no, just stay over here with me. Like, just keep throwing me the same ball over and over and over and over. And Derek Carr's like, okay, like, I gotta.
Did you believe his excuse to you? Like, he said,
oh, no.
he said, I could have kept going, but I know the trainers and the coaches don't want me to overwork Mike. So I told him, oh, I'm 32 years old. I can't keep going or whatever.
No,
do you believe him? Or do you think he was really tired?
I think would he want as the starting quarterback? I think in his eyes, he would love to go and work with Michael Thomas all day long.
Exactly.
But the heat, the volume.
They were like 40 passes in.
They were.
Yeah,
and
were.
too, like, oh man. And one of the things I mentioned to Nick yesterday, just the way that Michael Thomas, his hands, like he wasn't really using a lot of his lower body, and I don't think he can yet. It was really just upper body and arms and hands. The way he still can like snatch a ball out of the air. I mean, it was impressive to watch just in those
the one-handed catch he had over there was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we don't have video of that, guys. They don't let us shoot everything. You're just gonna have to trust us. But the communication between the two of them was just so on, and where exactly he wanted it over the back shoulder, all of that was. Hopefully it'll translate into training camp, but outside of that, I don't think we can really make anything of just the two of them working off.
I think we can make something of it. I mean, this is valuable time. This is the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. Like if things work out well, we're going to be like tracing it back to this. I mean, it's way better than Mike showing up for the first time on July 28th or something like that. I think there's real value in it. We cannot translate this to how many games he'll play, which is a big question. But we can say every time he's on the field, we still expect that same level.
This is like a weird thing, and I don't even know how to get into the topic here, but like I'm just saying it because it's a narrative that's out there. Like there were people saying that like Mike looked fat in pictures.
Oh my gosh.
Mike was walking around without a shirt on yesterday after practice near us.
Who said that?
Oh, it was a big social media thing, and he was doing it, I think, because he saw that commentary and he wanted us to see what he looked like without a shirt on. Dude just has like the biggest abs in the world, and that was it. Like he's not fat. Like he's in like wild shape. Like
somebody's
he's in like
upset about
shape.
Somebody's hurt or upset about something to be posting that out.
No, it was a
Twitter.
thing. It was a thing. Like,
well, no, this is an important thing we've talked a lot about on the show. I mean, learning shirt integrity is a term we've learned on the show. Depending on the chairs, sometimes we go in the PJ studio. You got to learn. You know, when you're being photographed, this is a big thing on family vacation. My kids have made fun of me. I've had to like learn how to be like, I can't have the. There's ways you get caught in a picture sometimes. You need to correct it. I mean,
like he's just dude just has the biggest abs that I've ever seen. It's just
you know what though? Is it a crop top day for Michael Thomas on day 2?
I don't know.
It might be. He might crop the jersey up underneath today to just let us know.
He posted a video of him like deadlifting without a shirt on, and then he didn't have a shirt on yesterday near us, and I was like, all right, like I'm gonna say something because like he's looking for, and I might be misreading it, but like, hey, whatever. But like that was definitely a thing on social media, and look, Mike is probably heavier than he was when
I will
2017,
say you know what?
but it's muscle
He looks
weight.
heavier in a good way though.
Yes.
You and I were standing right in front of him when he was off to the side, and Chris Olave too though.
Yeah.
Goodness, when a guy puts on weight, it doesn't mean that it's fat.
Yeah.
Like especially these are NFL athletes. Like everything they eat, they know exactly what is in it. Their workout regimen, their sleep, their water, like hydration. That's
the greater
silly,
a dude that's missed 3 seasons with lower leg injuries coming back stronger so that he can just bully the hell out of everybody. It seems like a smart way to maintain your edge.
The greater overall point though is people make those comments because this is kind of the theme of today's episode now. when guys aren't at OTAs, you start pouring over. Does that mean they're not
Mhm.
working out? Does that mean they don't like their team anymore? Does that mean they're not trying? And this is the thing we talked about in the first episode where Michael Thomas was back. Not only is he posting pictures of him working out to show what kind of shape he's in, he made a point to tell everybody the things he's doing behind the shadows, because people jump to these conclusions that if they don't see you in photos and videos in practice
Yeah.
recaps, they wonder if like you're off on vacation blowing off your job. Like Michael Thomas is not blowing anything off. We can all pretty much guarantee that with him.
You know who else was looking good out there? Our guy, T.Ginn Jr.
Yeah.
Back. That was
It's
awesome.
unbelievable that he's
He's
on
one
the
of our
staff,
like
or
media
helping
favorites
the
if you
staff.
guys haven't figured it out yet. Talk a little bit about why he was out there.
He's just helping out the staff. I think kind of trying to see if he wants to be a coach, if there's a fit, if it makes sense, if he, if the glove fits, like I could see him coming back to be like a camp intern like Jari Evans, and then who knows where it goes from there. But I think he's just a guy that's smart, knows the game, can impart a lot of knowledge. I think he has the right personality to be in that role too, like just in a helping capacity. Just I just like Ted. Like I don't know,
I
having
know,
Ted
he's
around.
great.
I'm sure the coach could have like Ted hit him up. And they're like, damn, we just want Ted around. Like let's just figure something
This
out.
was my conversation on the sideline with someone. Wait, is that Ted? Is that Ted? Find somebody that works with you. Am I making this up, or is that T.Ginn Jr.? Like, it lights your face
I
up.
love
But
it.
yeah, this program is a real thing, though. Like, so it's the Bill Walsh diversity program that the NFL's had in place for a while. But it's what led Sterling Moore to try out training camp, become a full-time coach on staff. Lee Torrance before him, Jari Evans now, as Nick mentioned. Jermon Bushrod did it for one season and didn't stay on, but it's been a really interesting program, and it's led to a lot of guys becoming real valuable members on the staff. Now, he hasn't signed up for that program yet. He's like, as Nick said, finding out if he wants to put himself in as the candidate for that job, but he certainly got an inside track on it.
Have you guys? Sorry to interject. Have you guys ever watched Sterling Moore work out before a game? He works out harder than any player on the team. He's out there. He's in the tights. He's out there like he's suiting up for the Patriots to play in the playoffs like back in the day. It is crazy to watch him warm up before a game.
All right.
He's going harder than literally every player out there. It's one of my favorite things to look
We
at.
haven't had to say this in the last couple of years because of their cornerback depth, but a couple of years ago we were watching him and saying, I mean, he could legitimate. It was the 2009 Saints were bringing guys out of retirement because they had so many injuries. Like, if you told me there was a game this week where, oh shoot, COVID went through the DV room, I think Sterling Moore can handle himself out there.
We don't need to say. He's telling the staff, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's go.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Well, there were some other new faces out there, and we apologize if we butcher these guys' names. I'm going to leave that up to you all. Some of the guys they were trying out.
Kiki Kuti, I believe.
Okay.
Kiki Kuti. I'm going to go
And there was one other
87%
receiver.
sure on that one.
I'm uncomfortable saying it. Kiki.
He had a run with the Texans. Like, he's a real name.
He
Yeah,
did, but
like,
I'm not going to even try to say it. Just Kiki.
And the other one?
Bowden, the wide receiver.
Raiders?
Maybe.
Running back?
No, he's a wide receiver.
Raiders?
He's a receiver.
I know, am I getting the wrong Bowden? But look, I mean, these guys come through and they have a fighting chance, and we've talked about that being a position where they want to look at some guys. If the Hunter Renfrow thing never materializes, we think they're a veteran man down. Still long shots to make the roster. There's a reason why they're looking for jobs now this year. One of the guys doing that this time last year was David Johnson. They kept those notes, and they ended up signing him 10 weeks into the season. So
they tried to get Pat Eflin here too. He's a name, former starting center for Minnesota. He was supposed to come, and then he decided he wanted to wait to see if there's a spot where he could be a starter. So they canceled that. They had Billy Price in to work out the day
Center,
before
right?
minicamp. Yeah, Ohio State too, I think. So
former high draft pick.
yeah, they're definitely looking at some guys on the offensive line. So maybe something happens there sooner than later. But yeah, it's good time to prove yourself and see if you can make the team.
Speaking of proving yourself, how did Ugo Amadi fly so under the radar for us? He was working with the ones in the slot role. Bradley Roby and him were kind of rotating in and out. And then he had the interception off Jameis Winston yesterday.
This would be a good name that Saint candidate. 5th year in the league already, 5th team in the league already. So he's been around. He actually won a ring with the Chiefs last year. We talked a lot about Lonnie Johnson and Jonathan Abram, and they brought in 3 veterans to compete at that spot.
Yeah, he's flashed a little bit throughout too, which is kind of it's interesting. I think he's played pretty well throughout the summer. Wearing number 0, maybe we should have paid more attention to the guy that came in off the street.
There's that
and
DB
claimed it.
confidence.
But yeah, I like what he's done, and I think he's definitely someone that's in the mix. And it's not just the pick; it's just kind of overall. Like he is somebody that's looked somewhat consistent, come in maybe a little bit of Justin Evans energy with just some of that ability to pop, move well, do things right away. And yeah, I mean, look, Sterling Moore was a guy that was on a different team every year, so maybe that's Hugo's path. But he looks good so far.
One thing for that position, and I think we saw that a lot in these preseason games last year. If you want to be one of those guys that's like the true backup, be consistent in these preseason games. How many DBs did we see miss tackles, dropped potential picks, completely bite on a route and get beat by a wide receiver? You can't make those mistakes. So if Ugo Amadi just stays consistent in these preseason games, he has a fighting chance for, if injuries were to happen, they'd be comfortable plugging him right in.
Look, if we're going to do a 53-man roster projection, and he's going to be someone that's going to be one of those guys that's like, is he on, is he off? Because at this point, like we can only project off of what we've seen. But he's definitely done enough to place himself in that conversation. He's looked good. There's a couple more practices to go, so you gotta keep building on it. But I think he's making that impression. Look, he's the second team slot corner right now, which means he's probably actually third because A.Taylor is probably ahead of him on the depth chart. But definitely, I think out of all those guys out there, and we've talked about a lot of different DBs so far, he's probably edged his way up that list ahead of like that list of other guys right underneath the guys that you would expect to be on the team.
We can't have this safety depth discussion though without mentioning Jordan Howden, who's been one of the more impressive guys of the summer, and he got some really valuable snaps too. He got to work with the ones as a dime safety too. So I think that speaks a lot to they're probably seeing the same development we've been talking about too.
When they were first doing drills, like the when we were watching the dime package on the other field, Smoke Monday was getting the first team reps.
Too.
Yeah, so he was out there.
A lot of choices.
And then when they went to team, Howden was the extra safety in that package.
Ton of competition, and even over with the kickers between Will Lutz and Blake Groupie. I think we got some more information yesterday, and just a reminder too. We're only basing a lot of this stuff off of what we see. Like, we try to get the intel, we try to get more information, but when you only see the kickers for and yesterday they actually moved us off the field to where we couldn't be right behind the goalpost and see who's actually making the field goals.
That's the second time we took an Ellen practice. Couldn't take video of Michael Thomas, and we're trying to watch it. I mean, if you try to watch field goals, even from
you just can miss it.
10 yards to the right, all of a sudden you lose that vantage point.
And to like be fair to the whole process, everybody walked off, and me and Mike stayed back to the scoring of the PR staff. Like,
we're trying to be like, the person who caught it appears to be standing by a bush.
Yeah, like we were walking, like we got like both our like legs blown off, like at that speed, like dragging. And it's just at a certain point, like we're just don't have the vantage point anymore. And there was one kick from Groupie where we're looking at it, and it's like, did that go in? Did it get pushed right? Like we couldn't tell. And then like the guys underneath were kind of acting like they made it, and he didn't make it. So he missed Mark. But look, throughout the whole camp, like we've hyped Groupie, but in the sense of
he's just new.
He's new, and if you see him, the fact that he can kick the ball like he can is just outrageous.
Unbelievable.
Like he is. If you went out there and nobody had jerseys on, he's standing out there, like you would think that he was like, and this is no disrespect, it's just fact. Like he looks like he's like an intern for like the front office in some capacity. He doesn't look like a football player. Smaller guy, doesn't have a lot of weight to him, and he just kicks the hell out of the ball. So you see him hit from 61, and it's like remarkable because it's like, how did this happen? And that's just who he is. So
it's impressive.
So yeah, like we talk about him in that sense. But look, Lutz has shown a bigger leg so far. He has a big leg. He's made more kicks. I would, if I had to handicap it right now when we do our 53-man rosters, depending on what we see over the next 2 days, if we were doing it right now on this show, Lutz is the guy that would be on the team right now for me.
Yeah, and one of the things that we could talk about at one point is whether there's a punter competition, because that's harder to grade. Does it go through the uprights or not? How far did he kick it? Is Nick actually charts that stuff really well, better than anyone in the media corps. But, Blake Gillikin has had one great NFL season, and he's got somebody competing with him. Will Lutz has 6 or 5 great NFL seasons. So he's going to have, you're really going to have to beat him. I mean, it's interesting because there's not always a candidate. Sometimes Will Lutz or the kicker runs unopposed. This year they brought in a real candidate. That means, oh wow, we've got a kicker competition. We don't always get that. That doesn't mean he's winning the kicker competition. That's a tough guy to beat.
And I think too, we get lost in the we've seen let's make these amazing kicks. Like we get lost in the of course we know we know what he's capable of. We've seen these incredible game-winning field goals. I think of the Texans game. That was the Saints home opener in 2019, and they like that just rocked the entire building, him making that field goal to walk off and win the game. And so I think we kind of get lost in the, like shiny new toy. Like, why is this guy doing so well? But we don't say these things to diminish like what Will Lutz has done. It's just
Groupie's 10 of 11.
We're talking about
him.
him.
Groupie's 10 of 11 in the practices we've seen too.
Yeah.
And everybody behind the scenes is talking about him. So I mean, the hype is real on him. Like, he's somebody that's a good kicker. He'll probably be in the league if he keeps this up going on and on. But the good thing about this is it's not going to be a matter of opinion. Like, and it's not coaches watching tape trying to decide which cornerback is better. It is just who's making the most kicks, who has the distance, who do we trust the most, and that's going to be decided on a spreadsheet almost. Like, you get to the end of camp, unless it's a Dustin Hopkins situation where one guy, Zach Hawker makes a kick in the preseason, Hopkins misses one, and then the coach forgets everything he saw the whole offseason and goes with the lesser
still
kicker.
Not over it. It's been 10 years.
I predicted it because I was just like, Sean's going to be like he's going to be swayed by this because it happened in the preseason.
Jokes on them. Zach Hawker lasted almost a whole season, and Dustin Hopkins is still kicking in the NFL.
No.
Oh, wait a minute. They got it wrong.
Yeah, they definitely got it wrong. They definitely got it wrong.
Just kidding.
But it was just, he was so snake bitten by like the inconsistent kickers. Like, it was just like,
who saved him?
He's going to go with the other guy.
Who saved him?
Yeah.
Will Lutz. It was 11 kickers. Will Lutz was the 11th kicker in 11 years. Before they finally ended the carousel. And that was funny when we talked to him, when he was like, when I first came here, I said, I'm going to end the carousel. So he's trying to do that still, however many years into his career. Just to recap, though, we've got players on the team who look like interns and coaching interns on the team who still look like players.
Well, we got to wrap this up because
Sterling's got to stop.
I know.
We got to wrap this up because we actually have to get out to the next mini camp. So thank you so much for joining us on another episode. We'll be bringing you everything that we saw on the next episode of NewOrleans.Football and 2. So second mini camp practice is coming up. Nick's gonna finally.
It's elite card throwing.
Is it elite card throwing?
I was trying to hit Brandon in the head.
We're going to hit an elite end. We'll see you next time.